Hey guys, and welcome back to Comic-Con Africa 2020. I'm in studio with my good friend Halbert. We're going to be talking to Adam Savage in a bit, but Halbert, before we start that, the name. You're telling me about the name Halbert, right?
I can't believe you're going to do this to me live.
Because after you told me about your name, I was like, look, Robbie's not good enough.
Yeah, I think we've got to find a name for you, so we're going to have to figure something out over the course of the weekend. But
Right.
we'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Okay, sweet. Halbert, can you tell me a bit more about what exactly that you do?
So I'm a South African esports shoutcaster primarily. So I work with some of the larger TOs in the country, just chatting about, what's happening in games. Basically, a traditional sports commentator would be my comparator. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. Been around for a while. I've been doing this for the last decade or so. So I know my way around the block around here.
Nice, nice. I thought of a name, Khalid Mufasa. That's my name.
I love it. I think we're going to stick with that one.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Adam Savage.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, I'm broadcasting here from the lovely London in the UK, so you can see it's pretty gloomy as per usual outside. So, welcome to England. Welcome to England.
Dude, thank you so much. I'm here with Halbert, and I wanted to just ask you, what was your first introduction into video games?
My entry point was kind of when I was a kid. We were really lucky,
Right.
actually. We got the Nintendo Entertainment System, showing my age here, the NES, back when I was around like 5-6 years old. And it came to Christmas morning, and there I saw a box, and it had the faces of the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the front of it. And I thought, hold on a second, this is a little bit of me. I love the Turtles.
Right.
What are they doing? They're selling this grey box, and it was a Nintendo. And I think from that point, I was completely captivated by it. I just loved it straight away. And I kind of felt, I think a lot of gamers will pick up a controller and you just feel like this is your thing. This is a thing that you have an immediate affinity for. And I've been playing them ever since. And I can't stop. I'm constantly playing games. I love them.
What was one of your fondest memories as a kid when you started playing?
Do you know what? I think one of the highlights for me was that there was a game that came out on the Super Nintendo called Donkey Kong Country. I don't know if you guys ever played that at all, but it was like this Super Nintendo game that was amazing. There was a local video store, a very popular one, that held this kind of regional competition to get the fastest lap times and kind of compete. I remember just entering for fun to kind of give it a go, see how I got on, and I actually ended up being like the regional kind of champion for like for a whole week.
Oh,
so
wow.
my name was kind of at every kind of video store in the area for a week, and I thought, I've made it, Mum. I've made it. I've completed life. It was an amazing moment. I thought, okay, games are great for me. I'm pretty good at them as well, which is great.
Right. Do you have siblings?
I do. Yeah, I've got 3. I'm the oldest. There's 4 boys. I'm the oldest. We have. I'm actually probably the major gamer. Really, the other 3 dabble a little bit, a bit of like FPS stuff. The odd bit of Call of Duty or FIFA. But for me, I kind of play everything. So I'm definitely the one that's.
Right.
I'm most into that now.
Yeah. I'm just asking because I have 5 siblings, and there was always a big issue at home about how many fights video games started, and then eventually my mom just putting it in the wardrobe, like, okay, you guys can't have it for the weekend. It brings out the worst.
I'm with you. You had to really be careful around the gaming system, just in case one of you slipped up, but it was gone for like the whole week, and that was like a travesty, the worst thing ever. So
Right.
I know what you're saying.
Right.
I have to ask, if you were playing with siblings, did you get Mario or Luigi?
I made sure that I was Mario. That was absolutely happening. As much as I've grown to love Luigi over the years, I think at first, a bit like Sonic and Tails, you think about Tails and you kind of think, it's just Tails. But nowadays you kind of go, I kind of dig Tails, he's okay. But as a kid, it was always player 2. You always saw Luigi as player 2, so I had to be player 1. So for me,
I was the
Mario
younger
was the star
brother
of the show.
So I was always Tails or Luigi. So I know that feeling. I have to like them from a young age.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
When did you start feeling like you're going to take video gaming seriously? At what age did you feel like this is something you can pursue?
It was, as a career, I never really thought about it much until I got, I started working with Jinx, so I'm sure we'll talk about it shortly. A video gaming channel started here in the UK, and at the time here, I wanted to try and break into television somehow. I kind of thought, I did acting as a kid, and I thought, okay, I'm going to focus now on kind of being a a host, if you will, because I thought I'm better at being myself than other people. I'll focus on me and doing what I do. So I started kind of auditioning and doing a few things here and there, and this opportunity came up to be a host at a video gaming network. And I thought, okay, that's not a thing that really exists here. And I've not really seen that before, but it was kind of following the kind of music television route, that kind of like, different segments, different features and things. I thought, I know a bit about games. I've played them all my life, so I'll give it a go. It's an entry point. And that was kind of around 2010 when suddenly YouTube came along, the world exploded. Video games suddenly, it became like, esports began that kind of, bubbling away. There was some kind of small tournaments here and there. So it was a good time to get in because suddenly it was just everywhere. And it was a massive thing where I thought I want to be kind of like a music presenter or entertainment, like TV and movies and stuff. Gaming was my thing, and it's been my thing ever since.
But when you joined Jinx, what was their pitch to you? Because this is before this was just popular and it was happening everywhere. What was their pitch to you that convinced you that this is something that you can get into? And not just a hobby.
Yeah, well, I think for me it was what was a really nice opportunity when it came along to things like kind of auditions and castings for different stuff that came up. It was very, very quick. It was a case of if you didn't get the job there and then, that was kind of it. The thing with Jinx is there was this almost this investment in you as a not only just a presenter, but almost like you were encouraged to write things and kind of capture gameplay and create your own video content and write scripts. And it was this very organic environment where it wasn't just like a one job, that's it. You can until the next job, we'll see you then. It was more a case of you were part of the family and you continue to kind of like have new ideas. You kind of got to really kind of be amongst the team there and kind of pitch things. And you felt a lot more invested that way, not only with the team, but with the content you were making as well, because you actually, you could have your own little touch on what you were doing. And then there was a chance to do things behind the camera and kind of, produce some stuff, direct some things. And ultimately, I just learned a ton. I've seen some of the guests you've had on the course of the day asking how to get into the industry, but it was just experience that was kind of completely invaluable because I kind of had all these different strings to my bow, and it wasn't just hosting anymore. It was kind of like, oh, I can do that and that and that. So, hey, choose me, pick me. That kind of thing.
That's awesome. And like, what's your favorite part for working with Jinx? Like, what's the one thing that you really cherish for being part of that team?
It's been, it's so fun. I mean, over the years, I've worked with some incredible people. I think that's the kind of thing that we all kind of take away from our experience there. Like a lot of the people that are kind of like are popular today, who do different things from different networks as well, like have started out at Jinx. So the people are definitely a thing that I've loved about it a lot. I mean, a lot of laughs, a lot of fun, and it's been like a giant learning experience. I think that's the thing that's been the greatest about it. Is it's felt like I have been part of that family, and we have kind of worked together. And I have great co-hosts. Like I work a lot with Anthony, who obviously everyone knows from like the first hour, and Ant and Sav versus the World, who did recently during lockdown. So you kind of get to work with people, and as I said, it's just a really fun place, and everyone's been constant. I've always felt part of the family there, and that's what's kind of meant the most to me. I think has been the greatest thing, and I've done so many things since having started out working there way back when.
All right.
So, I mean, you mentioned that you've done a huge amount in the time that you've been involved with it, but do you recall what your first experience was like being involved in an esport event?
I do, yeah. Like there's a couple of different moments that stick out for me. I think there was a thing happened where Jinx actually turned into an esports network about 4 years ago. It was originally kind of entertainment video game network, and now it's more esports focused. And back then, we stopped doing the shows that we were doing, and we kind of focused on other projects. And I suddenly found myself in that esports space a lot more. And I think the first thing I ever did was I worked for a company called ESL, and I obviously had all this experience I mentioned, hosting, kind of knowing where the camera needs me to be, and hitting marks and throwing to different people around the studio. And I think I was working a Halo World Championship event, and working with casters and working with commentators and analysts. It was like, whoa, this is like a proper sports broadcast. I'm now a sports presenter. This is awesome. So I started, I got into it that way. But then, fast forward, a few years last year, and then I've kind of grown to the point where I'm kind of hosting the Blast Pro series, the major Counter-Strike series around the world. And I remember being on stage, and it was in Copenhagen at the Royal Arena, and I was hosting the event, and we had 12,000 fans were in the audience. It was me, and I felt like a rock star. It was unbelievable. Like there, I was going, "Hello, everyone!" Everyone's like, "Yeah!" I thought how things have grown from that small little studio where we were kind of doing these kind of remote broadcasts to now being here playing out arenas. It was just this incredible progression over like a few years. It's gone from that to this, and it's been incredible to see it grow so fast, so quickly, and so big.
Right. Who for you is one of your favorite guests you've had on?
On, do you mean like in the shows I've worked? Or,
Like, who's your favorite person that you've interviewed?
I've interviewed some great people. I've actually been very lucky. So actually, across things like it's weird actually. Obviously, I know Comic-Con's associated with like a lot of like superheroes and Marvel and DC and such as well. And over the years, I've weirdly kind of been, I kind of like found myself in positions where I'm chatting to a lot of people who are some of the superheroes at Comic-Cons or at kind of different events. So I had a really interesting interview with like Henry Cavill, who plays Superman, where it was like a mobile phone launch, and they were like, "Oh, we need someone to come down and do some interviews with some of the kind of the team there," and the guy who was the face of it was Henry Cavill. And it was around the time that Superman and Batman came out, Batman versus Superman, sorry. And I just ended up spending like an afternoon interviewing Henry Cavill, which was insane, in front of like 1,000 people. Thinking, I woke up this morning thinking I'll just go there for a few minutes, and here I am doing this. But there's been other great stuff, like, you know, I've had Carl Urban, who's a great guy who does a show called The Boys, which is now huge on, like, you know, on Amazon and stuff. I interviewed him a little bit, and Ezra Miller plays the Flash. These weird people that I've just somehow happened upon, thinking this is the weirdest circumstances ever, that this has just kind of fallen into my lap, and I'm chatting to these people. So it's been really cool to chat to some kind of superheroes in real life. That's been awesome.
Right.
I think bringing that back to something you said earlier about how you've had these opportunities to be engaged with esports, and it was kind of like a sport. I'm curious to know, from your perspective, what is different about esports hosting to traditional sports?
I think with esports hosting, the scale of esports has grown so astronomically in recent years. I think the likes, if you compare it to like, you know, football or soccer or rugby or cricket, whatever, there's been generations for this thing to grow. You know, kind of like, you know, you're kind of usually into something because your parents, brothers, siblings, sisters, whatever might be into it. With esports, it's become this huge thing very, very quickly. So you definitely see this projection of all of a sudden it's gone from kind of like these small kind of like remote events to suddenly these massive sellout things. So you've seen a real growth very quickly. And I think with the birth of like obviously social media and streaming and content creation too, there's so many people invested in it now as well. So I think whereas traditional sports and kind of, you know, being a host in that respect, I think is quite formulaic. It's quite kind of like, you know, you kind of expect it to be this kind of analytical kind of, you know, looking at the game in a certain way, then you throw to this. Whereas esports, anything can come your way. And all the people that compete in esports as well, you know, a lot of people, you can get anyone. You look at like Fortnite, where you've got people competing at the age of like 12 or 13 years old, like kids. Yeah, compared to now, like you get, I mean, chaps, I've had some unbelievably awkward interviews in the past with like people who have clearly never been on camera before, but are really good at video games.
Right.
And you have these moments where you're going, so tell me all about it. I mean, that was an incredible thing. That what just happened? They're like, yeah, it was pretty good, wasn't it? And that's all you get. And you kind of go, perfect. I've got 3 more minutes of this. Let's carry on. You know, and there's kind of really awkward moment where, you know, again, at least with traditional sports, people are used to a certain level of being in that kind of, you know, environment. Right. But with esports, like anyone can be a champion of something very quickly if they get a good run or are really, you know, the new meta, they just get it straight away and they dive into it. So you get this kind of like this real hodgepodge, this mixing bowl of like random people that you just want to go, okay, let's interview this person and let's host this thing, and things go wrong on these huge scales. It's just about it's just basically, I think with experience, you kind of comes confidence. So over the years, those situations happen. You know, even if all the lights went out in an arena, somehow I'd find a way to make a fun thing of it and just roll with it. So right. I think you know, I think with outside of a filmed TV studio and in like an arena space, and you know, instead, the things can go wrong. But it's just I think it's I live for that kind of stuff. I live for live stuff. I love live stuff like this.
Totally.
Awesome. But of course, you're not just involved in esports, you actually also run a very successful podcast. I'm curious to know, what made you decide that, hey, this was yet another thing that you wanted to take on?
It was, do you know what, it was a great, another circumstances, like, you know, fate, if you will, destiny just brought it together, really. It was like, ultimately last year I was chatting, I went for a meeting with Sony Music UK, talking about how they can grow. They were looking to kind of get more into the esports or gaming stratosphere. Obviously music's their bread and butter, but here was a chance to get into gaming somehow, because obviously a lot of musicians are also massive gamers. But that kind of, it's where do you bridge it? Where do you kind of, you know, where do you bridge the gap to kind of like show their love of gaming, but not make it kind of feel forced, make it more organic. So I suggested the idea of doing a podcast where basically I chatted to music stars or TV stars or whatever it might be, content creators, where, we get them on to talk about, their life in games, which people might not necessarily know about. You could get a band, like we had like Bring Me the Horizon, a huge band. Or we had like from RuPaul's Drag Race, Trixie Mattel came on. People that you wouldn't necessarily associate with games, but you get a chance to talk to them about that passion that they have. People go, that's a really interesting hook. So the brand new season during lockdown, obviously, it's been just the worst 6 months, like in terms of like events and things that you could do. And there was an opportunity to record the second series, but be at home in my environment, my studio, in my mum's cupboard that you can see, where ultimately we would, thanks to modern technology, you could kind of, you could call someone up, or you could, kind of, use a Discord, whatever kind of, app to record, online. So I've had this thing kind of been working over the course of the last, however many months, and it kicks off next Tuesday, the 29th. Have it in your diaries, the 29th next week. The Savage Situation Gaming podcast. It kicks off, and we've got a massive guest the first week, Dan TDM, who is one of the biggest YouTubers, content creators around the world. So it's the first time he's ever been on a podcast, which is a really good kind of like, kind of personal guest to have on the show to really, launch it with a bang. So it's been great. It's a really new medium that I'm not used to doing. I'm not obviously used to podcasts, but obviously with the experience again, it makes perfect sense. But I've loved it. It's actually been really nice doing things from the comfort of my own home. I've been glaring studio lights in my face and just sitting here eating sandwiches.
We're staring at those studio lights right now. But so I'm curious. So you mentioned you obviously have some big names coming and joining you on your podcast. Yeah. How do you choose them? How do you get involved with these individuals so that they can share their stories with you?
It's one of these things where obviously over the course of the last 10 years that I've kind of worked in and out of the industry, I've been very fortunate to do different things. Not just with Jinx, but there was a time that I ran kind of the Activision UK blog, so I spent a lot of time with like Call of Duty YouTubers. So I kind of started to meet a lot of like creators that way, which then led me on to producing big kind of stage shows here, like Legends of Gaming Live. And producing is obviously a thing that is another string to my bow that I've been doing as well, like producing live shows. So that's kind of a thing I can kind of do two things, host and produce. But over the course of this time, I've kind of met tons and tons of very successful creators, like particular online creators from like the Sidemen everyone's very familiar with, or in the UK, we've got Ali A, who's a big, kind of Fortnite YouTuber and things. You've got all these different people that I've kind of met along the way, who I can, luckily I've struck a friendship with, and a kind of like a mutual respect of being in the same kind of industry, and kind of said, hey, could you come be on the podcast? And they've kind of gone, yeah, we'll do it. Well, right. Fine, sure. Because there's that initial relationship, that trust that I'm not going to try and pull a fast one or try and kind of catch them out or anything. It's because there's very honest kind of open chat. So like we talked about esports earlier on, like one of the I think week 2 we've got Shocks coming on, who's a massive esports caster of like League of Legends, and she's arguably one of the biggest kind of like hosts in esports in the world. So there's a real kind of nice blend of, you've got esports talent and commercial talent, as well as like creator, YouTube, Twitch talent too. So there's a real kind of interesting insight into the gaming stratosphere. And another guest that is really exciting that I can't wait for is a Street Fighter world champion called Ryan Hart coming on the show. And his story, I know him quite well, but he tells me a story that I'm going to save for you guys to listen to the podcast, but how he got to where he is today and what the things he had to go through to get there. It's just incredible. Everyone's kind of own little paths and the way they found their way into the video game space. So it's been great.
Speaking about that, have you ever felt like there were things that came along the way that kind of put you off your true passion, and you had to just keep on doing it until where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. There comes a point with everyone who works, I think, in games where this is an unpredictable industry as well. There's moments when you take world events this year. Like I had an entire year worth of work that was planned, which was all completely canned because of here we are talking to each other over the internet, where I'd love to be there with you in the studio. So it's like one of these things where you can't. A lot of things had to change, and I think over the last few years, lots has changed in terms of I have a family now. Like I've got a little boy with one on the way. There's family I take care of.
Have you introduced the little boy to any games?
Yeah, he's 2.5. So I'm kind of. Do you know what's weird is I obviously love games, but I'm kind of a bit weirdly. I think not hesitant, but I'm kind of like, oh, when that comes to be, we'll embrace it. But for now, I don't need to. I'll wait. But I think what's interesting, a lot of people ask me the question, which is, what's going to be the first game that you share with him? And I'm kind of really torn because I'm kind of like, look, when I grew up, it was like, 8-bit consoles, like we're talking like the Master System and the NES and the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo. So I'm like, I kind of want to start back there and give them like kind of like a repertoire that I had of like the back catalogue of history of games.
Right.
And kind of progress our way to like modern day. So he kind of really sees how it's grown so quickly.
You need to learn the patience to wait and let a game load.
Yeah, or blow into a cartridge for 20 minutes. Be completely out of breath. Think I can't actually play the game because I can't. I need to get my breath back. I need to get another sandwich. But I think. But going back to your question with having how things can be difficult sometimes is I think with anything with like a family and you start thinking obviously priorities change. So you need to think about kind of like earnings and keeping a roof over your head and the kind of like and life stuff. But I think with me there have been times that you get a little bit. You miss. I look at YouTube, for instance. I look at people that kind of were doing YouTube, and I remember back in the same kind of era when people started out 10 years ago. There I was trying to grind away, trying to get into TV, where I know that I should have now, looking at it, focused on doing online content, making videos online, being a pioneer in that world. And in this day and age, I'll be a multi-billionaire. Not that extravagant, but you know what I'm saying. It's a really prosperous industry now. But at the same time, I've kind of learned to make my own. I think that's the greatest advice I would say is that don't be committed to just one thing. This is an ever-changing space in games where things change all the time. And if you find something that you feel is good for you and there's an opportunity there, there's something that is really starting, that movement that you can get behind, then go with it and see where it takes you. Because I started on a path which is very different to the one now. And here we are doing Comic-Con together. And like, I don't know, this is going to be a thing tonight. So all these different things happen, and I think that's the great bit of advice. Just go with, be passionate about something and just roll with it because you never know what might land.
Right, but your passion's also taken you into worlds that I'm sure you never dreamt of. You performed once for Her Majesty the Queen.
I did.
How was
Queen
that?
Elizabeth II.
What's the process? Don't they teach you how to shake her hand and?
Yeah, well, there is. It's kind of crazy. This is back in my thespian acting days, gentlemen, where I did a bunch of. I went to work. Weirdly, I went to work at Disney World in Florida for a year when I was like 19 years old, which was another kind of like a real kind of life-changing experience. I came back and I suddenly went, right, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to do acting and be a real famous guy. And I kind of got myself into this kind of world where I thought, right, I'll start trying to get into castings and stuff and trying to find my way. I had no idea what I was doing. I was completely clueless. But somehow I found my way into a show in the West End where I was kind of like a bit part in the ensemble, like sword fighting on stage in this musical. And at the end of the final run, they were like, hey, Adam, we've got this other show coming up, which obviously often happens in the gaming world now. Someone recommends you or you're in with somebody who's got a job that comes up who gets you along for it if they like you. And he was like, how would you like to perform for the Queen at Buckingham Palace? And I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Wow.
Yeah, obviously. So there was this giant show called the BBC Children's Garden Party, and the very famous chef called Jamie Oliver.
Yeah.
I'm sure you might know. He made he made a picnic for 1,000 children, picked at random across the country. We had like the cast of Harry Potter with our special guests, and the whole thing was about trying to reintroduce kids to children's literature.
Right.
So we were performing kind of segments from different books, like that across history. And at the end of the show, they were like, get into a line because the Queen wants to meet you all. I was like, what? I was like 21 years old. And so she came round and she was tiny. And she was like, you were very good. I was like, well, thank you, Your Majesty. But the weird thing is, when you meet the Queen, you say Your Majesty. And the second time you meet her, you call her Mom. So if I ever get the opportunity again one day and I say, hello, Mom, she might go, I've met you before, and you were dressed as a pirate. I was dressed as a pirate, by the way. I was a pirate. It was a Peter Pan thing. Okay, whatever. Okay, I still met her.
Look, bonus points if you can be dressed as a pirate the second time you meet her. Like if you pull that off somehow, it'd be pretty amazing.
That would be that. What a story! I've met the Queen dressed as a pirate twice. Yeah, exactly.
Certainly, that would have to be a twice-in-lifetime occurrence because there's no way it's happening a third time. I just want to bring it back slightly. I'm curious to know something. You mentioned that you worked in the production side of things, obviously as on-air talent. Do you think that those different hats that you wear help the other? Do you think that being perhaps in production helps you be a better presenter, or is it totally isolated?
Yeah. No, absolutely, 100%. I think when it comes to learning about production, and I'm very fortunate to do a lot of producing on live events, which is, again, I've created. I like to think of the niche I'm going to create for myself is that I'm a host and a producer. I can produce my own content and work as well, stage work. So we're talking like, you know, when you go to like a live show, like knowing what's going to be playing on different screens at certain times and cues for certain things to happen, and how, yeah. So these kind of like this creative flair that I think I've always had, really, I kind of bring to all my work. I think with production, when you understand what's going on behind the camera and how things run around you, because if you're just focused on one thing and one thing only, which is delivering things to camera, sure, that's a great talent to have. But if you also know what's going on, you know, in case if something goes wrong, for instance, or something, you know, happens which you weren't expecting, your production brain knows, okay, they're going to try and fix it this way, so
Right.
I'll try and skew the conversation in that way. So you kind of have this kind of knowledge of the way things are going to work. So they absolutely work together in unison. And I think as well, you know, from the production standpoint, you get a chance to learn about, you know, the crew is very important as well. Obviously, knowing what everyone does in the crew, be it from lighting to sound to everything as well. So
Thank you, guys.
It's an all-encompassing thing.
Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Big love to the production team right now. But yeah, exactly. So you're going to get a real kind of a knowledge, a feel for how the whole team is working together on something. So it absolutely kind of, even like, you know, the camera you're looking at, everything kind of plays a part of it. Yeah. So for me personally, it really, really helps.
Look, talking about productions and stuff, you were in the first Captain America.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was
See,
that? How was that being on the set of a massive Hollywood blockbuster?
Well, in England, we'd say absolutely mental.
Right.
Absolutely mental. It's one of those things where I moved to London. Sorry, I'm telling my life story now.
No, carry on.
I moved to London around 2010, actually 2011, and I moved to London, and my brother at the time had already moved. They'd already made the move, one or two of them, and one of them said to me, "Mate, you need to earn some money while you're here. You can't just kind of rely on on hopes and prayers that you're going to make ends meet with your rent and stuff. So why not enroll in an extras agency?" And I was like, "Oh, fine, yeah, sure, whatever." You know, thinking, yeah, I'll be a bit part walking in the back of a soap opera that no one's going to see me for, you know, 50 quid. Great. But I got this, the first casting I got was like, "Oh, we're looking for someone of a certain height, certain build, whatever. Do you want to come along for a fitting and stuff?" And I was like, "Sure." And they were like, "Right, come along to this movie set. Come along to this studio, and it's for a film called Frostbite." And I was like, "Okay, sounds like some kind of weird teen horror film set in like the Himalayas or something. Fine, yeah, cool, I'll go along." So I turned up, and they kind of dressed me up in this big kind of gear and stuff, and these big kind of red overalls and kind of winter jacket and stuff. And they were like, "Right, you're perfect for it. We're going to offer you the role." And I was like, "Amazing. So what is this Frostbite movie all about?" And they were like, "This isn't Frostbite. This is Captain America."
Oh, wow.
And I went, "What? What the? Come on, man, you crazy?" Because but this is back, yeah, this is right back at the beginning, like just I think Iron Man had come out. Maybe I think this was like the second or third movie in the kind of like the Avengers, you know, kind of like the current or the 23 movie saga that came out. So I was if you've ever seen the movie, which you probably have done, at the beginning of the movie, when they have the scene where they cut Captain America out of the ice with like a laser in like kind of like the Arctic. You're looking at Laser Guy number 4.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, it was cool, and you know, I had this amazing experience on set. They created this in somewhere just outside London. They created this Antarctic kind of like Arctic, whatever it was, like circle, and we had like, you know, all the effects were chucked at us, like snow, wind, rain. It was just incredible, and it was one of those moments that I'll never forget, because it was like, I'm in a Marvel movie, and now as well online you can find out that the MCU, I am actually in the MCU, my character and everything. So I didn't die in the first set of Avengers movies, so I could come back in a sequel. You never know. You never know.
That's amazing.
I like it. So it was influenced by the events of the first Captain America, comes back as some. If you could be a superhero from the Marvel universe, even one that exists already, which one would you go for?
I don't know. Do you know what? Do you know what? I really like kind of like the anti-hero in a weird way. Like I really like Deadpool, someone like that. I think would be great. Like those kind of characters really make me laugh a lot. I think they're great. I think Batman and Superman. I wouldn't want to touch those characters because they're too big a role.
Right.
I'd want to be like a fringe character, like someone who's like, you know, in it, but like can take a step out. Like Ant-Man, I think is a good one. Has his own movie. He's key to the whole plot, but really it's not the same as a big character. So one of those, really. I think I'll definitely do one of those.
Totally. So before you review a game, what are the games that strike you? Like what is the reason for you picking certain games to review? Apart from people just giving them to you.
I wish that was always the case, but yes. But I think for me, I've actually, it's a good question, because the way that over the last 10 years, since being in the kind of the games world, the way that my mind has changed, the way that I review things has also evolved a lot as well. I look at games very differently now than I used to. I used to look at games and kind of go, right, there's this. I like this, to tick in the boxes of certain criteria, the way it looks, the way it plays, the way it feels, am I invested in the story, that kind of stuff. But now I've started thinking about a lot more about, like, why do I like? There's a new game called Star Wars Squadrons coming out very soon, like in the next couple of weeks. And Star Wars is huge for me. I'm sure it's huge for a lot of your kind of viewers online as well. Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. Star Wars is huge for me, and so for me, when there's a new game about Star Wars, I'm really invested now, because obviously it's a part of a story arc or a narrative that I love, that I've invested a lot of my life into. So looking at it now, rather than just looking at the kind of the standard stuff you tick off, or tick boxes off, I now look at it from a lot more analytically, in the sense that, why do I like this? Why is this game happening in the universe? Why have they thought this was a good story to tell? And I start looking at a lot more from a objective standpoint, like, do I even really want to hear this story? Is it something that's going to kind of captivate me, fans of new, fans of old? So that's the kind of stuff I kind of look for now in games. So we do a show called The First Hour on Jinx, which is hugely popular, I believe, in South Africa, which is amazing. So we do this show. It's kind of a let's play show. So it's kind of goofy and silly. Like, we just have fun playing, kind of games together. Me and my co-host Anthony. But on the show, we often play games for the very first time. We've never touched them before, and just play the very first 60 minutes just to get a feel for it, and kind of like digest it on surface level, just what it is, and see if we like it or we don't like it in that kind of 60-minute window. Because for many people, games, they do cost a lot of money, and you have to commit to something financially, and that's the only game you're going to play for quite a while, to your next paycheck down the line. So you want to be honest and open about it, and give people kind of like a bit of insight into what it's really like. So that's how I kind of change things now. Like, I think there's two different sides to it. I used to play, there's on the surface level, the kind of the boxes I like to tick around certain things, but analytically, I've really started, as I get older, to kind of look at things a lot more objectively, to kind of really kind of work out the why this has come to be, and whether I truly do like it, or I'm just liking it because Joe Blogs over there likes it too.
Right. If you had an option, right, what's your favorite movie? Let me ask that first. What's your favorite movie?
Hands down. But it's between two. But I'm going to give you the one that just nips. I think for me, just is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just Indiana Jones. I think second place, Back to the Future Part 1. They're my two movies. They're the two front runners.
So if you had a choice, which movie would you convert into a video game?
Do you know what? And this is it, man. What I don't understand. We're going to get really deep here now. I don't understand, right? Okay, there's a lot of angst here. Why have they never made a really decent Indiana Jones game? Yes, they've had the Infernal Machine, and they've had the kind of like the SNES version, which was okay, but you've got games like Tomb Raider, you've got Uncharted, you've got these kind of games which are kind of the same thing, which are kind of adventure games, going into tombs and getting artifacts and whatnot. But Indiana Jones is like the coolest hero ever. Why is there not a game which is based on Indiana Jones properly? The Lego Indiana Jones game, I've got to say, was a lot of fun. I liked it. But a proper one. Same as Back to the Future. Like, you've got time travel. You can do anything.
That's so true.
I don't understand why there's nothing bigger.
I feel like there's a Back to the Future game. I'm going crazy. I think there is one, but I
There
hear
is.
it's not like a super well-known, super successful title. So I'm with you. I think we need it's going to start here, guys. We're going to start a little coalition. We're going to start our own studio. We're going to get an Indiana Jones game going up and running.
Well, lads, I'm sure we can find one of the creators or designers or artists you have at Comic-Con just to draw up some preliminary sketches for us, and we're away.
Right.
Pitch out. Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Look, we're meant to be having some questions from your fans. My earpiece isn't working at the moment. It's all good. But if you guys can just write down the questions.
Saying, sorry. No, it's fine. Don't worry.
After you giving me the advice of if you work behind the scenes, you know what's happening. So I'm trying to figure out what on earth are they doing? What is the most cringe-worthy experience you've had, whether it's been in acting or whether it's been interviewing somody? Is there one of those experiences you've had where you've just you got home and you had a drink?
Yeah. Many of those ones. No, I think the kind of stuff. I mean, what's really cool is there was a stage in my career where I was doing a lot of red carpet reporting. So basically going to a movie premiere. I was working for an entertainment news network. And you go along and you interview celebrities about their latest movie on the red carpet, and take it back to the network, and you put together like a video or a VT, we call them obviously, that you can whack online and share. And there was a few moments you kind of met some celebs, and you kind of go, that wasn't exactly as good as I thought it was going to go. That was kind of like, that was kind of like or that person was not particularly nice, or you kind of assume everyone's going to be lovely because you see them on screen, you realize, oh, not so lovely. So there was a few times I asked kind of a few questions to people thinking, right, I need to get a news scoop here. I need to get a real scoop. Something I really is gonna bang online. And you'd ask the question, they just look at you and go, don't ask me that. And you go, okay. And you have those moments where it's just like, oh, just get me off. Just let me go home. Let me go home and cry into a box of tissues. Like, that was embarrassing. Those kind of moments happen. Falling over sometimes, or, things, there's I mean, even when I was younger and performing in like kind of local kind of regional theatre, there were times where I had like 2 lines in this major show and I just completely forgot lines. And that can be really rubbish.
Yeah,
when you forget a line, just that you stood there going, and this is the worst moment ever. So I think that those things happen too.
Especially those plays like a Shakespeare piece where everybody knows the dialogue. You can't just throw in, throw in your own thing.
Like the major line, the one line that you need to really kind of like finish the show, and you just go, I don't know what I'm saying. That can happen too. Yeah.
Just smile and hope it goes away.
Just smile and go.
What about the opposite? Have you ever said a line that you weren't supposed to? So, for example, being hot mic'd or something at an event.
Yeah. I've been hot mic'd a few times during stuff, because you naturally assume a lot of the times that, I mean, the thing for me, actually, there's something that comes to mind. So doing a show last year, I was in Moscow last year, and I was at a show doing the Blast Pro series again, and it was going to a Russian audience. And so for the shows that were international, we had like a local speaker and myself, like an English speaker for the international broadcast. And there's moments where you kind of stand there, and I'm sure you guys know as well, when there's a camera on you, if you see that little red light, 9 times out of 10 it means that's the camera that's live. That's the camera I'm talking to, that's the camera. And so you usually get a cue in your ear, obviously, to say, oh, there, and go, whatever they might say. And you start your bit. One of those moments when I've got not only the entire world watching on the internet, but I've got 8,000 people watching me on this stage, waiting for me to deliver the line to get the final started of this Counter-Strike competition. And I've seen the red light has gone on the camera, whereas in my ears, they always cue me. Every time. It's proper, really well put together, and I've heard nothing. So I'm there thinking, I'm live, aren't I? I know I'm live. No one's told me, but I know it. And I'm there thinking, my mic's live, so I can't talk to them and say, are we live? So I'm just there going, just waiting. And 7 seconds feels like 7 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Until and then someone in my ear just goes, are you finished? I hadn't even started yet. I was like, what? I'm like, come on, man. So it's just one of those, happens every now and again.
I know those feelings. I'm a comedian. I know those feelings when you tell a joke and the crowd doesn't laugh, and the back of your head, you start thinking, I should have studied.
Yeah. I should have paid closer attention. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
What talent do you have or wish you had that you could show off? What's that one thing?
So many talents. I like to think I'm pretty good at sport, but I could be better. I definitely could be better. I wouldn't let myself there. But when I was a kid, I tried to learn how to moonwalk for ages, and it just wasn't happening.
My sister actually broke her arm trying to moonwalk in socks.
See, it's a dangerous game, man. Like, it's dangerous, but it's like if you nail it, if you really nail it, game changer at parties.
Right.
Everyone loves you. It's like I moonwalk. That was hot. That's the kind of thing you want. I think probably one thing I do regret from when I was younger, I wish I'd learned to play a musical instrument. I think that's probably the thing that I wish I'd done. I'd focused more on, like playing the piano or something, or even focusing on, obviously being English as well. We take our language so seriously. We're like, we might learn different languages at school, like French or German, but we're like, oh, we speak English. Everyone speaks English. I wish I knew a second language. That would be really helpful, obviously, as well. That'd be really helpful.
Definitely. And lastly, this is actually a question from a fan that was pre-written. Mm-hmm. Now that you're expecting your second child, and you've got the first boy, How would you raise your kids? Would they be console players or PC players?
Do you know what? In this day and age, it's again like I hold my hands up, and people will kind of say to me, "Oh my God, you're not a real gamer." I'm a console guy. I've always been a console guy. I didn't really grow up with a PC at home. We always had consoles. I was really lucky actually when I was growing up. My dad at one stage was working for a advertising agency where they had the Nintendo account at one stage. So things like the Super Nintendo, I had a bit of early access to it when I was a kid, like with Street Fighter 2, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. So I put so much into the console world that the PC stuff got left behind a bit. But as time's gone on, obviously, I've got a lot more invested into PCs, particularly with esports. Like, the biggest games are played on PC. The best players tend to be on PC. But I think I'll start them off small. Yeah, a great entry point is the Nintendo Switch. It's so good. It's really is. For just playing at home, even Mario. The great thing about the Switch as well, I found, is that even if someone doesn't play games or hasn't got a clue what they're doing, you give them the Joy-Cons and somehow they just figure it out and they just go, okay, cool. I know how to go in a straight line, or I can jump around that corner, and it makes it a lot easier to play those kind of games. So I think maybe kind of family gaming, like Switch kind of stuff, will kind of enter the Savage household first,
right?
And then we'll move to PC from there.
Right. Look, Adam, it's been great chatting to you, man. Have you been to South Africa before, or Africa in general?
Man, I have not. Do you know what? It's the one. I've been to part of North Africa. I've never been to South Africa. I would love to come. Maybe next year. God willing, everything happens okay and the world gets back to normal again. I would love to be there. So I'd love to.
Oh man, we'd love to have you at next year's.
100%.
We'd love to have you. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you so much everyone for tuning in and for the questions and stuff. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon.
Sweet.
So much. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Savage. Which camera? Oh, I'm there. Adam Savage. We're gonna come back just now with a panel discussion hosted by Loisa Mkhize. But first, a word from our sponsors. Thank you, Halbert.